Dude, welcome back to the Accelerator program. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to get stuck in and design your resistance training program. So it's broken down into 10 steps, and I actually want you to go grab a notepad and pen. Feel free to pause the video and get really clear on what's going to be the best program for you, because some of the things that I'm going to be talking about, such as training frequency, exercise selection, choosing your training split, recovery, intensity, all of these things are great. And whilst they might sound amazing on paper, you are very much your own individual. And I'm pretty sure I've emphasized this enough throughout this free course. Just because it sounds like the best training program to maximize results doesn't mean it's going to fit into your unique schedule or circumstances. So if you're ready, let's jump straight into it. The first thing that we need to do is actually determine your training frequency. So I actually want you to decide how many days you're going to be training each muscle group per week. Now, beginners typically start with full body, and they do around 2 to 3 resistance training sessions per week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, because the majority of guys, they like to chill out on the weekend, right? You go catch up with some mates, or maybe you've got a little bit of work that you need to catch up on. Maybe you just sit down and it's barbecue season, or you're catching up on your favorite Netflix series or sporting channel. Really comes down to how you audit your week. If you're more of an intermediate, then we want to train 3 to 4 days per week. And I would typically recommend an upper lower training split or full body every other day. So how you might program that is, if you're doing upper lower, upper is on Monday, lower is on Tuesday, you then rest. Then if you want to get it done across Monday to Friday, well, guess what? Thursday is going to be upper B, and then Friday is going to be lower B. And when I talk about an A and a B variation, that simply means different exercises within that program. Let's say, for example, for lower A, you were doing a hack squat as your squatting pattern. Well, for lower B, you might do a pendulum squat for your squatting pattern. Full body every other day, that might be full body A on a Monday, you then rest on the Tuesday, full body B on the Wednesday, you then rest on the Thursday, full body C on the Friday, you then rest on the Saturday, and then full body D on that Sunday. And of course, you need to leave rest in between your sessions because it's going to be very taxing. However, when you spread that volume across the week and you determine your frequency, which we'll come on to a little bit later once we've completed step 1, it's going to allow you to progress 10 times better. If you would label yourself as an advanced lifter, you're going to be training 4 to 6 days per week, and you're going to focus on muscle group splits. So things like push-pull legs or push-pull legs upper lower. But what I will say is that higher frequency allows more volume, but requires careful recovery planning. So I followed an upper lower split for the best part of 10 years. I've recently transitioned to full body every other day just based on time management and also enjoyment. The fact that I get to hit chest, back, legs and shoulders and arms in a session, I enjoy that. But then again, some of you may even label me as a psycho. For others, hey, if you enjoy push, well, it's chest and shoulders, right? So you may enjoy that considerably more compared to doing a full body. So step number 2 is you then need to choose your training split. So we want to select a structure based on your frequency and your goals, how many days you're going to be training and whether you're aiming for muscle building or for fat loss. Now, if you're going to do a full body split, that's going to train all your muscles each session. And I know it's best for beginners, but to be honest, it's best for intermediates and for advanced lifters, in my opinion. But if you're watching this and you're just starting out, I'd recommend full body. Then you can head into an upper lower split. So you can alternate between an upper and a lower body day. You can do an A and a B variation, sometimes even a C if you want to spice things up. Or you could do a push pull legs. You can separate pushing, pulling, and leg exercises across the week. Or you can do a body part split, so you can focus on specific muscle groups for each day. That could be advanced chest, back, shoulders, arms, but then that goes against sort of training frequency and when muscle protein synthesis is elevated. But again, when you choose your training split, it comes down to what you enjoy the most and what you're going to be consistent with over a long period of time. So once you've picked your program, please don't start chopping and changing and going from full body to upper lower to push pull legs to body part splits. Stick with one, get really good at it, and progress it. I saw hundreds of thousands of men, bodybuilders, power builders, powerlifters, general gym goers, follow a push-pull leg split for years. And when I was asked, what split do I follow? It was always upper lower. And it's because I enjoyed it. Step number 3. We want to include a balance of compound, so multi-joint, and isolation joint movements. So we actually want to start with the compound lifts first. Squats, bench press, rows, and then we finish with the isolation exercises such as a lateral raise or even a curl. But you're probably wondering, well, Jack, didn't you mention that you did a hamstring curl or a leg extension before you went into your main compound? You can. I'm not saying you need to, but if you really want to connect with that muscle and you want to create a little bit of pre-fatigue, by all means, do it. And when you do those sorts of movement, you are training the muscle in the concentric to begin with. And then as you start to fatigue and get more tired toward the end of the session, when you train in a lengthened position, you're going to recruit more muscle fibers, training at longer lengths, which means you can continue to progress. Sometimes if you do your main compounds first and then you go to do a concentric exercise towards the end. So if I did a barbell back squat, a leg press, and then I went into my leg extension, I struggle because my ability to recruit as many muscle fibers significantly reduces. Whereas if I was to do the leg extension first and then go into the main compound, well, we've trained the muscle in a short position and then we've trained it in a lengthened position. So the example here could be 2 to 3 compound movements and then 3 to 5 accessory or isolation exercises. I would actually say anywhere between 6 to 8 exercises for a training session is very, very typical. Moving on. Step number 4, to build muscle and strength efficiently. We want to structure your training using a mix of rep ranges. So for compound lifts, whether you're aiming for strength or hypertrophy, the reps per set could be 4 to 8. And then for the sets, it could be 3 to 5 sets. And then for the rest, it's 2 to 3 minutes. And the focus, well, you want to build maximal strength and you want to recruit high threshold muscle fibers. And examples do include, we got squats there, we got deadlifts, we got the bench press, we got the overhead press, we got rows. For your accessory and isolation lifts, you may aim for 8 to 15 reps per set, 3 to 4 sets. And then for the rest, 45 to 90 seconds. The longer you take to rest, in my opinion, the better. Even though we've got a general rule of thumb there, 45 to 90 seconds, I would actually say go when you're ready. When you feel mentally and physically ready to attack another set, that's when you go. And we want to focus on maximizing muscle tension and volume. An example could be leg curl, a cable fly, a lateral raise, triceps, and even curls. So in short, to build muscle and strength efficiently for your compound lifts, we got the squats, we got the deadlifts, we got the bench press, we got the overhead press, we got the rows. For your accessory and isolation lifts, we got the leg curls, we got cable flies, we got lateral raises, we got tricep extensions, and we've also got curls. Look at step number 5. How long should you be resting? And I know I've already mentioned this. It depends, if it's an isolation exercise or if it's a compound exercise. I mean, here it says 30 to 90 seconds between sets for hypertrophy. I've even put 45 to 90 seconds. Just go when you're ready. 2 to 3 minutes for heavier compound lifts. I guess if you're against time, then yes, 30 to 90 seconds for like isolation exercises. Then for heavier compounds, 2 to 3 minutes. But shorter rests are going to build up metabolic stress. Longer rests will allow for better strength output. And overall, to be honest, it really comes down to progressive overload. Sets times reps times load. Step number 6, to continue building muscle, your training needs to get harder over time. It can't be a walk in the park. You can't just go into the gym and go, well, I'm going to lift some weights today. Halfway through a session, you're not really feeling it. Kind of switch off. You're on your mobile phone. You're scrolling through social media. And hey, it was a pretty average workout. No, you need to be adding weight. You need to be adding load to every single exercise. You need to be increasing reps. If you did 6 repetitions last week and it was absolute grind, guess what? Try and get 7 reps this week with the same load. Be mentally prepared. Don't give up. Don't convince yourself that today's going to be an easier session just because, hey, you weren't feeling up to it. Add sets. Be careful adding sets because, again, it depends on your training frequency. But adding sets can be effective, and you could start at a baseline volume and then slowly increase it as the weeks progress. So if you start at 10 sets per muscle group per week and you're progressing very, very well, guess what? You can add an additional set. So therefore, you're doing 11 sets per muscle group per week. If you're still progressing, great. You've then added 12 sets per muscle group per week, and you've started to see that on your barbell back squat or on your incline dumbbell press or your deadlift that you're starting to regress. Well, it's too much volume, so you need to pull back. Improving form or tempo. Every single session, sometimes there are going to be sessions where it just doesn't click, right? That being said, you can still improve your form or your tempo. So the eccentric, the concentric, and also the isometric. And that's why it's super important that you do film your training, regardless of who you are, where you come from, the experience that you have, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced. Please do film your training and actually look back on things that you're doing well and things that you need to work on. Reducing rest time strategically. So you can use intensifiers like cluster sets, supersets, drop sets, muscle rounds if you are against the clock and it's on a lunch break. But remember, longer rest is generally better. Overload is the key to long-term gains. As previously mentioned, the biggest driving force when it comes to muscle building is going to be progressive overload, how you progress on a week-by-week basis. So it starts with mental preparation before physical preparation. If you convince in your mind that you are not prepared for that session and you're just going to take it easy, guess what? You're not going to grow. Simple as that. But if you start that mental preparation 24 hours before, and then you're ready to go, you're ready to tackle that session the following day, I can guarantee that you'll progress. Trust me. We then have exercise order. So the exercise order and the variation. Start with the heaviest, most technical lifts first, because it's going to pretty much use a lot of brain capacity, like a squat or a press. You'll notice that any sort of like free weight movements, they do require the most brain capacity or energy, and then finish with the less fatiguing isolation work. Anything that provides a great amount of stability. So I know that a barbell back squat is gonna take a lot of energy out of me compared to like doing a leg extension, but they're equally as hard if I rock up and I actually apply that intensity. And I know I've said like do the heavy compounds first and then the isolations after. Depends how you feel. There'll be sessions that I'll go into and I'll go straight into my main compound because I've been mentally preparing. And then there'll be other sessions where my knees really aren't firing and I'll get my hamstring curl and my leg extension in first just to warm up my knees and warm up my quads, which will allow me to then again mentally prepare for my main compound. Chain exercises every 4 to 6 weeks to avoid plateaus depending on the training block. Variation keeps training effective and engaging. It most definitely does, but to be honest, we need to think long term about this. So it depends how you design your training block, what we would call a mesocycle. So a mesocycle is anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks, and you do start to see a little bit of regression around week 4 or week 6, depending on how you've designed the block. But if you're not progressing in exercise for, let's say, 2 to 3 weeks, that's a key indication that you probably do need to swap it out. But if you've got an A rotation, a B rotation, a C rotation, or however you've designed your resistance training program, whether you're doing full body, whether you're doing upper lower, push pull legs, A and B variation, it really comes down to how you apply your technique, your tempo, your progressive overload with those exercises, and ultimately exercises that you enjoy. I know that when I design a training block, I'll have exercises in there that I enjoy, that I really look forward to, and also exercises that, hey, I don't really enjoy. But do you know what? It allows me to build my dream physique by doing those exercises, by taking action over like putting emotion into sort of my training instead. It should be something that I enjoy. Looking at recovery and deloads. So when should you actually include rest days? You need at least 1 to 2 full rest days per week. So I remember years ago, I would ask someone in the gym, how many days are you training? And they'd say 6 or 7. I'm like, dude, I'm only training 4. Like, how are you recovering? And then you kind of take a step back and you look at their physique and it's like, that's not that impressive. That's why you're not growing. It's because you're training way too frequently. So you need at least 1 to 2 full rest days per week. I'll be honest, I've always sort of prioritized my rest days over my training days. They should be equal. Yeah, work hard, play hard. Deload every 4 to 8 weeks with lighter loads or fewer sets. When people talk about deloads, I think there's a lot of conflicting information online, like, should you deload? The answer is it depends. If you're progressing nicely, you don't need to deload. But if you're starting to regress, you're not really enjoying training, you have low motivation, high amounts of fatigue, and it could be for the reasons that aren't even about training. It could be like stress at work, it could be family, it could be relationships. Then by all means, deload. Use lighter loads, focus on your technique and your tempo, do fewer sets, because a short workout is better than no workout at all. Sleep and nutrition and also your stress management are going to be equally important. During our last session, they were one of the 4 areas that we covered towards the end. And step number 9, tailor your training to your body. Like I said, the perfect plan on paper may not necessarily fit your unique circumstances. So you need to work around injuries or mobility limitations. I would class myself as a world-class barbell back squat. I've squatted over 300 kilos at around 83 to 85 kilos in a commercial gym. And I've also hit 230 kilos for 17 repetitions. Nowadays, when I go to hack squat or I even try to do a barbell back squat, unfortunately, my knees are wrecked. And you know what? During that time that I was focusing on strength and getting really strong and performing to the highest standard, now I need to work around injuries or mobility limitations because getting older. And as you get older, you have drops in strength and you're going to have a little bit more pains and niggles. So work around it. If you've got an exercise that is causing pain or discomfort, by all means, swap it out. I stopped hack squatting for a good amount of time, and only recently, probably in the last couple of weeks, that I've been filming the Accelerator course, I've started to include it again, and that's just because I've really worked on my mobility and taking that muscle through the full range of motion. Choose exercises you can perform with full range and control. If you are a tall chap, 6'4", and you try to barbell back squat, it's going to be super tough because you've got long levers. Same with leg pressing. So find movements that you enjoy and you can take through a full range of motion, and then prioritize movement quality over chasing numbers. I think there's an equal and opposite to that, almost like yin or yang. For a lot of guys, they focus on optimal training, and it's like taking that muscle through the full range of motion, using a lighter load. But as I previously talked about, using a bucket analogy in one of my YouTube videos, the main driver of muscle hypertrophy is tension. And we can create a lot of tension using heavier loads for lower reps, but time under tension is also key. So we need to make sure that we're pretty much doing moderate reps and moderate weight, or taking it as close to, if not failure. Sometimes when we do chase numbers, I know when I was chasing like the 300 kilo squat, sometimes I go into a session and my form might be a little bit off. I may not hit depth as well because I'm now using a load that my body's not accustomed to yet. That's very, very normal, but if you're just chasing numbers for the sake of ego lifting, please leave that at the door. Just prioritize quality movements. And then step number 10, tracking and adjustment. So we want to use a training logbook or an app to track your performance. That's going to allow you to monitor your strength, your recovery, and also your physique progress. Data is so important, and it allows you to adjust your reps. It allows you to adjust your sets or even exercise selection as needed, because you can look back and see where you're progressing and sort of where it dips off. Consistent tracking allows for smarter training decisions and even better results. So what I've done is I've actually created a free accelerator program for you to download, and you can actually watch the Loom video on how to use that program itself. It's very simple, but please do make a copy of that sheet before you start editing the sheet itself. Otherwise, when the next individual comes to download it, they're going to see an incredible number of changes made by you guys, and they're not going to be able to use that accelerator free program. But go and watch the Loom video in the next training, and it will show you exactly what you need to do to build out your very own resistance training program. I shall see you in the next training.